like to welcome our next speaker, Dr. Harun Badakhshi, who works as a senior attending oncologist at the Charité Hospital in Berlin. In addition to clinical cancer research and intensive graduate and postgraduate teaching, his activities are focused on visualization strategies and technologies in medicine, science, and metamedia, herein examining the aesthetic and cultural relevance and impact of digitally generated body images in a medical context. Welcome.
I do not remember who wrote this text about me, so that's not me maybe, but maybe yes. So allow me to tell you in the next minute something absolutely theoretical. The reason is very easy. I'm a practitioner, I'm working all the day with patients in a normal routine, so I need some theoretical input. This is the best chance you gave me. I take sometimes these chances to do some basic thoughts, really basic thoughts about issues which are related to our life. And let's start this time, 15 minutes, sometime, about body, which is this one, in Kishiki, which is ritual. It's just an idea I want to share you. This is not part of a workshop, so when we talk the day after tomorrow about the issues and themes we will discuss, this is not. This is just a theoretical play which I try to, let's say, to seduce you to think about this. So just take it as like a play to these issues. If I work this. So we will talk about the body and the ritual. Something very easy. As you remember, all these guys, the gentlemen before me, they mentioned a lot of stuff. Spaces, rituals, everything. But one word, which might be, in my eyes, the most important is, was absolutely absent. And when you go to your normal conferences, when you go to cultural studies, when you go to philosophy, when you go to wherever you go, one thing is absolutely not there. This is us. The body is who we are. So we're talking about spaces, we're talking about categories, we're talking about the soul, we're talking about the sky and river and city. Everything is absolutely abstract. Space nice sounds, really sounds very nice, but my problem is how to just to change the perspective to see what about us. The first instance, first and foremost, we are bodies, nothing else at first. So this is the basic assumption. I play with you. If you do not agree at the end, tell me that. If you agree, okay. So I'm happy. In case no. So let's start with this. Any kind of ritual. In this case, water-related rituals. Bathing with you and with the classical Ottoman bathing cultures, which are maybe one of the richest in the world, I think. So this is a very old Japanese photograph which shows one thing. Naturally, we have rituals which are related to water, but first and foremost, there are bodies who are dealing with water. So body is always acting in relation to water as ritual. So there's no other relationship. So this is what I'm assuming at the first. Okay. So I'm assuming that our bodies are just related to the to water in the frame of rituals. That could be modern time bathrooms, that could be Ottoman bathrooms, or all other stuff what you mentioned. So this is why I try. And now a small piece of theory. I'm sure you're not afraid of theory because you're too smart for that. Let's see first, why I told you that I think that in all our discourses, the body is absolutely absent. That's not the reason. There's a reason for this. We think that as if thinking in the Western style, which we know since, let's say, Aristotle and Plato, that thinking can be always taught in isolation from physical environment. Even the symposia, which we are now doing, the symposia in Academia of Plato was something absolutely abstract. The theoria was the driving moment of this. Oh, this is good. I distracted. Okay. So first, the philosophy and the thinking in the modern world is suggesting us that we think absolutely isolated of our physical, biological environment, which is not true. Second, And let's say in terms of neurosciences, of today's sciences, we think that intelligence is something purely, absolutely mental, extra a quality which is extra partes, which is not true. And we think this is a religious, a spiritual context. Some of you mentioned that in Turkey and Egypt or somewhere else, in Japan too even, that spirituality and the spiritual spheres are different substances outside of the body, which is not even true. We know that. We know that since ever. At least we know that since, let's say, the old Greek philosophy, which is always suggesting that we could not be able ever to think or to feel or to touch without our bodies. But however, this is the only thing which is always absent. You see that in your own talks, there was no body at all, even in yours. Yeah. Okay, let's start. Let's start with a guy which people think to know, but think this guy is absolutely something absolutely easy. Friedrich Nietzsche, absolutely mad guy, not really in the best shape in the biggest part of his life. He started to say that philosophy, he meant himself, is freeing itself from its obsession with the soul. We are obsessed with our souls and our psyche, consciousness, stuff like this, only to find itself landed with something still more mysterious and captivating, that we are bodies. If you take that, I can tell you that this first sentence of Nietzsche is a kind of a restart of return, going to the roots. And the roots means actually our bodily existence. The guys who he meant normally, who are actually guilty for this, were maybe mostly these guys. Plato, you know that there's no time now to reflect on Plato, but Descartes and Spinoza, these two guys are actually who are the most important thinkers of our modernity. Descartes, who started with kind of dualism of body and mind. We are somehow obsessed of mind and forget, obviously, always the body. And Spinoza tried somehow not to overcome Descartes, even they were living at the same time, at 7th century. But at the end of the day, he landed by God, at the end of the day. So this is maybe a problem, but this is the guy who is interested for us. And this is what he says, very easy. This is from Also sprach Zarathustra. Thus Zarathustra spoke, body am I entirely, and nothing else. And soul is only a word for something about the body. Some of you might say, oh yeah, so simplistic. This guy was really mad. Maybe. But if we take a tradition of thinking body in the Western world, this is maybe the beginning. 140 years, something like that. He was talking about great reason, große Vernunft. He was talking about small reason, kleine Vernunft. The big reason was the body, and the small one, the spirit or Geist, which is now one of the main, let's say, constituents of thinking in the Western world. And the other stuff is not very important for you, just to have an idea. Again, we step, let's say, 50 years later, Maurice Merleau-Ponty, a guy who wrote during the Second World War, let's say 41 to 45, in which whole Europe war, wasn't at the war on burning. This guy was sitting somewhere and writing nice stuff about the body, just to see how philosophers are thinking and living. He was starting with something like this. Insofar as I have hands, feet, a body, I sustain around me intentions which are not dependent on my decisions. He means consciousness, mind, soul, stuff like this, and which affect my surroundings in a way that I do not choose. So this is, Merleau-Ponty was, let's say, the successor of Husserl and Heidegger in terms of phenomenology, to say we have to go back to the basics, to the roots, which is our bodily existence. Not at all. So all these people were not neglecting the psyche or the consciousness or the soul or something, but they were just saying, go back to the basics. You are at first and foremost your body. Just two sentences from him, bodily experiences. This is what the core essence of phenomenology. Bodily experiences that forces us to acknowledge an imposition of meaning. It's very important because the term meaning has a long tradition in Western society and Western philosophy. Its idea is just easy. Just beyond it, with the means of your body, you got this meaning to the things of the world. Just to remember that very, very shortly. My body is the meaningful core which behaves like a general function and which nevertheless exists and is susceptible to the disease. That was just a release too. We are our body. We are in the world through our body, and so far as we perceive the world with our body. It sounds very easy, very simplistic, and you can say, we know all that. Not, we don't do this. When you see the tradition of 2,000 years, at least a modern Western philosophy, all this stuff is not so evident we think today is evident. So just, the body is a natural self. That's us. And that is where the subject of perception. We get just one step, and then we are finished with theory. It was just a small dip into the large areas of body theories in the Western world. The guy who know well, I guess, all of you, Michel Foucault, and it's very easy. This is the vice versa of the most important thing we know since Buddhism, Taoism, and a lot of other spiritual ideas that, let's say, that the body is the prison for the soul. No, Foucault just change it, the perspective. No, the soul is the prison of the body. And the reasons are very fast. Just I want to let's say, indicate 2 or 3 important thinkers in the last century to, let's say, to give you an idea why we have to go back to these basics of bodily existence. At the end of the day, any kind of hammam, any kind of modern time bad thing is nothing than dealing with our bodies, nothing else at the end of the day. And he told very easy, I wonder whether before one possesses the question of ideology, what many, many people are doing, go to Humboldt University, 90% of them are doing that. It wouldn't be more materialist to study first the question of the body and then the effect of power on it. So this was something very special Foucaultian. He was studying the Greek philosophy in the last days, dietics, economics, erotics, everything, all these issues are relating to the body, as you can see. Diet, exercise, sleep, this is what we try to recommend patients or people. Relation to others in terms of, let's say, communities, and relation to himself or itself, which means eroticism, the care of yourself, stuff like this. All these issues are, at the end of the day, again, related to the body. So I tell you why I'm telling you this, all these stories. Let's start with the ritus. What kind of rituals we know? This is what you know. This is in Germany, in Aachen, 500 years ago. So this tradition is well known in Europe, in Asia, and somewhere else. This is the Asian version, the Japanese version in the 17th century. And whatever you see all the time, you see bodies. This is an old Indian stuff. This is again, I guess, Turkey. This is somewhere in Europe and somewhere maybe in India. And this is Albrecht Dürer, one of the most beautiful stuff you could find on bath or communal or, let's say, collective spaces of bathing. What you see the first is not just a ritual at itself, because when we talk about rituals, we get abstract. A ritual as a ritual. No, first, ritual is related to these bodies you see. In this case, very nice bodies, actually, at the end of the day. So, I can assume that very easily, to make it short, the body is always somehow related to ritus. And water-related rituals are somehow always related to a body. Not abstract rituals, but bodily, biologically, physiologically rituals. You see that everywhere. If you look for that, I can show you that for the next, let's say, 2.5 hours. But I guess I have done just 5 minutes, so we should make it short. Everywhere, at each condition, you can see what kind of rituals are related to, let's say, to water. And this water and these rituals are always related to these bodies, which these people are. You know that. This is well known, what kind of water rituals exist. You can see that in all religions, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Judaism, Islam, even Rastafari. movement, which not so much people know that. Even they have very nice stuff. Hindu, let's say, acts of purification. That will be a purification, cleansing, stuff like this, which we will deal a bit in the workshop. Just take a picture and remember what I told you in the first part. We are talking not just on water, but on bodies in water, water in bodies. This is a kind of prayer for the God of rain. That means, you mean in India it's enough rain. But again, they have the feeling that they have to pray for the God of rain. But why not? If you have monsoons now, just right now, you need to pray that maybe for another God. But again, it's always the same. This is the body of these people in these containers of water. The most public spaces, the most public rituals, always related to the bodies, always related to the water. And something very nice, which is, let's say, the mikveh, the old Jewish tradition, which is even, again, the same, purification of the body. You can see that these spaces, this is a postmodern space, maybe architects like this. But this is a very, very easy way. You have just, you need a basin, a bit of water, just put the people there. Most important is that you are not dealing with souls, consciousness, and stuff like this merely, but at the same time, you're dealing with bodies, with real bodies. That's what I try to tell all the time. Let's go to Japan, Sento, one of the two main rituals, water-related in Japan. Again, it's the same. We are talking on bodies and water. Families, older people, younger people, very young people. The kind of, let's say, community sharing naked bodies in public spaces, which is very Japanese, but even this is a kind of, let's say, ritual related to water. This is a nice stuff, which is just in Poland, in some Czechoslovakia and in Hungary too, the so-called Śmigusz Dingusz. Easter Monday in Poland, people are just walking around on the streets and throwing just waters, buckets of water on people. This is not the cleansing or, let's say, spiritual purification. It's just playing with water. You know, it's just by chance that it is Easter Monday. But at the end of the day, these people want to play with water. That's it. And to finish it, you know that. This word, who of you is going to the church, actually? Nobody. So you don't know that. This is my body. The first and the most and the oldest sentence in the church. Here, this is my body. This is a tradition which, let's say, Christianity may be cultivated at most. You can see that mostly in Orthodox and Catholic churches. And maybe there's a origin in baptism, which is the old Greek tradition, actually, of ritualism. You can see that in the nice Italian painting. It is always the body of Christ in the water. You know, there are variations of this kind of baptism. You can, let's say, put the body completely into the water, partly, or you're just poured water on the head of God's Son. 100 years later, it's always the same idea. And you remember, we are seeing just naked bodies in this context. I don't see any soul, any consciousness, anything else. It's spiritual in this. Again, the same, El Greco, just a bit later. So the European art is showing you in the last 300 years how much the relation between body and water-related rituals are so strong with each other, related. But we normally, and most of art historians in Germany, are talking all the time just on the other dimensions of soul, psyche, consciousness, beauty, stuff like this. At the end of the day, is this what counts? And the nice stuff I wanted just to show you, the Church of Water made by Tadao Ando, because you're designer and architects, I should do something for you. You see how nice you can do it, if you want to do it. So at the end, I can finish it. Ritus is becoming corpus, maybe, and vice versa. And it's enough for today.